Stories are a common feature of our everyday existence. We will continually reflect on the question, why do I need a story to live by? In this video we will explore some of the sacred stories of Judaism, in particular those that relate to two key characters of the Jewish sacred story, Ruth and David. Sacred stories in Judaism are often found in the Tanakh, the Holy Book. They can also be found in other sacred texts, such as the Talmud, which is comprised of two parts: the Mishnah, which is a commentary on the Torah, which stems from the oral tradition and is sometimes known as the Oral Torah, and the Gemara, which is a study of the Mishnah, including commentary and analysis. The Torah is one of the most important places in which you can find Jewish sacred stories. The Torah is written on scrolls of parchment by hand, and is respectfully placed in the ark of the synagogue. When used in the synagogue, a yad, the pointer that you can see in the picture, is used, rather than touching the scroll. Many of the sacred stories contained within the Tanakh are about the early Jewish people, who were known as the Hebrews. We will find out about two of the key characters of the sacred stories here, Ruth and David. There are many sacred stories in the Tanakh, many of which are read at festivals throughout the year. The story of Ruth, a strong female character, is read and celebrated at the festival of Shavuot. This festival celebrates the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai. In other words, it celebrates the origins of the sacred stories of Judaism. Pause the video and read Ruth chapter 1. Ruth's story is interesting. After the death of her husband, she accompanies her widowed mother-in-law back to Bethlehem, even though she knows it is a life of hardship she is going into. The passage when Ruth says to Naomi, "Your God will be my God," in verse 16, is often interpreted as the first conversion to Judaism. This sacred story inspires some Jewish people to accept converts to the religion. Some rabbis have taken this to mean that ancestry is less important than personal faith in whether someone is considered to be Jewish. Ruth goes on to marry Boaz, a wealthy farmer, with whom she has a son, Obed, who in turn goes on to become the grandfather of King David, one of the most important characters in Judaism. This means that Ruth is great-grandmother to King David. A further addition to this sacred story is that the Jewish Messiah is expected to come from the line of King David, and therefore also can claim Ruth as an ancestor. King David is another important character about whom you will find stories in the Tanakh. David was king for 40 years, leading the Hebrews into victorious battles and acquiring land. However, David started out life as a shepherd boy, the youngest of 8 sons, with low expectations of his potential. He played music for King Saul, and Saul was pleased with him, and he entered Saul's service, playing the harp or lyre for him. The statue you can see on the screen is in Jerusalem, at a place that is respected as David's tomb. It is contentious, however, as some Orthodox Jews believe that the statue breaks the commandment not to have idols. You may have heard the popular story of the young David killing the giant Goliath with his slingshot. The story goes that this young boy grew up to be king. However, even in adulthood, David wasn't perfect, and you may be familiar with the story of him taking the wife of one of his soldiers, Uriah, and having Uriah put in the front line of battle, where he was certain to be killed. David himself is said to have composed many of the sacred stories of Judaism, including those contained in many of the Psalms. Although this is the tradition, some believe it is unlikely that David actually wrote any of the Psalms, although some rabbis say he may have edited them.